No, I'm still working on it. I'm actually trying to get a roller right now, because I got all the water out. I
You
cut
just
the
have the
line.
every go for the pump it right out.
No, I pumped it already.
Oh, you did, okay.
I'm looking for a liner, a roller so I can roll the sand before I put the new liner on the wall.
A hand roller?
One of the small, yeah. Because I got to be able to lift it over my 4 feet, over the pool,
All
sand
right.
pool. Shit. Maybe it's under.
See, funny coming in this way.
Yeah. Shoot.
You guys are live now, just so you know.
It didn't save it. Everything. Get all the sewer hooked up down there today?
Looking better, huh?
I can't believe the state doesn't send somebody down there when you're that close to the road for,
They ain't got enough people for themselves. They can't get any help either. But it looks good over on the plant. You keep it looking nice over there. Yeah, it is. It really does look good.
you get your new mower yet? You did?
Is that what they were using today? I saw them out there mowing. They had the blades on the bottom. You need a couple new blades.
You get your line back? Did you get your line back? I dropped it off yesterday morning. Yeah, it had a hole in it. The second one did, yeah. The first one I used, the other one, the next day I hooked up the pump to use the longer line. Had a hole in it. Yeah, the long suction one had a hole in it, so I just did it by hand. Yeah. It had a. Yeah, he said that I could have. I said no, I'm not going to mess with it. It doesn't belong to me. Yeah, I could have, and I could have done some spray to it, but I didn't want to mess with it because it's not mine to mess with. So I just did it by hand.
Hi, Rick. You're right there.
You having a rough day there, Carrie?
Now I don't even have to turn it on.
We all set?
Carrie, you ready?
Yeah.
6:30 on the dot. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. 6:30. First order of business is we have minutes from our last meeting. We did start with that work session. Were there any changes or issues? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve those.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Just that one signature. This is a reminder that we have a public hearing next week. Notice is hereby given. We will hold the public hearing June 29th at 6:30 for the purpose of accepting and expending the USDA grant for the Ashwillet Rail Trail in the amount of $33,000. This is no, it's a 6:30, yeah. Well, the public hearing starts at 6:30, but we might start next week at 6 PM. We'll follow up about that after, just a very brief work session for annual reviews. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Jim wants us to know that we are going to be doing another auction. St. Jean's auction is going to happen on August 20th at 10 a.m., Town Hall. There are 3 properties, 5 Broadbrook Road, 168 Gun Mountain, and 356 Bolton Road. I'm sure we'll follow up about that again. Is there no finance folder?
There is no finance folder this week. You took care of it all last week.
That's awesome. I just felt all of a sudden like I was out of order. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's an update in here. The town beach testing came back good. If anyone had any follow-up questions about that. See none. Perfect. A couple of fireworks permits, excuse me. These were just held from last week, just for one signature, and both of them have been completed at this point. They're both signed by fire chief and the police chief.
Motion to approve.
And there's a second in there. Pick one, Carrie. It was a
Yep.
Chan and a Teresa. Perfect.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Just kind of clarity, this is the last week for permits, or is it next week?
It'll be next week. They
Okay.
had to be due in by the end of last week, which they have been. There's still like 9 or 10 of them upstairs waiting for the last signature.
Okay,
Residents did get them in on time. We're just waiting for some signatures.
Okay,
So
so-
there'll be a bunch more next week.
so people know you can no longer file for fireworks
For the
permits?
4th of July weekend.
Right, for 4th of July weekend, okay.
Yeah, it could still catch after that, but for that particular weekend. All right, this is the State of New Hampshire Department of Revenue making their annual request to the municipalities to determine whether we will be utilizing a taxpayer inventory blank in accordance with RSA 74-4. But I don't see,
We have never done that, and there's not very many towns that do it.
so will not,
We
should
will
be
not.
checked off,
I
correct?
recommend not doing it.
Okay. I was wondering if this was coming for recommendation or looking for recommendation
No, it's our choice, which way
Right.
we plan on going.
to not.
I'll second that.
Just some discussion, I did look at the application that the state would send if we were to approve that. And it's pretty general, it's everything that Avatar does already. The only stipulation with that is that if it is not filled out, honestly, you are subject to a fine, I think it was like 5 or 10%, based on your assessed property value.
So really, it's information that Avatar already provides, and this is just like the state's second level.
Correct, and the money would go directly to the state.
Yeah.
But we have to manage it.
Right.
No, I know how some of those forms work. Well aware. So we are making a motion to will not. be.
Yes.
Well, no.
And that's a second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And then, Carrie, are you the only signature there?
No, I need 3 selectmen.
You need 3 of us?
I'm the contact person.
Gotcha. First three gets it. We had previously had a conversation with regard to the acceptance of domestic septage from the town of Winchester, excuse me, from the town of Richmond. We had signed it, I think, right, and then they signed it, and then this is the
So
original back to
Hinsdale. We
us.
signed Hinsdale's, we did not sign Richmond.
Gotcha.
Hinsdale just sent theirs back, and Richmond also sent theirs back. So that's
Perfect.
great news.
Yep.
Which that will qualify us when we apply for our loan for 2% per town forgiveness on our payback.
Excellent, so 4% total between the
Yep.
two. So I misspoke, I apologize. So we've previously signed with Hinsdale, and now this is Richmond. Is there a
Yep.
motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
I did just have some discussion. I know this will get us 2% back off the loan. I was just curious, I know Rick mentioned that he did not want to up the sewage rates for these towns, but it's my understanding that Hinsdale does not pay us, and that is, we're paid through a third-party vendor. And I was just wondering what the difference would be if they were to pay us directly versus that 2% savings that we would be making. But that's, I mean, I'm happy to vote in the positive for this, but it's just kind of a question for the future.
Thank you. And maybe something that we can have further discussion about, just so we have a no. Any additional discussion? Excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. This is an application for reimbursement for federal and state forest land. This is relevant to Pisgah State Park. And the total amount of 8,146 acres. I always like to say that out loud because I don't think about it being that large, you know?
That's just in Winchester.
That's just,
Yeah.
15,000 total.
yeah.
How much was in Winchester? Let's just say it out loud for everybody.
8,146, what, .5?
146.5 acres of beautiful recreational land in the town of Winchester.
So this is just our request for the reimbursement from federal and state
state.
forest lands. And I need to check off?
I'd like a motion to accept the funds.
Full?
Yeah.
As a,
No, that, you leave that alone, because
Thank you.
we're not in that, we're not doing any of those this year.
that's what yep.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next up, we have our annual agreement for services with the ELM Memorial Community Center. My understanding is that this is signed fiscally. This is their contract or their agreement with us with regard to what they're going to do with the money that's been raised and appropriated. That amount was the 55,000.
Second that.
And I just had a little additional discussion. Typically, we hear from the agencies in town, whether it be Access or the Elm, just once a year, like around
Yeah.
budget season.
Yep.
And I was wondering if maybe we could just kind of have a little more regular update, multiple reasons. One, it gives us kind of a timestamp of all of the things that they are doing, so that at the end, when it comes to budget season, you know, we've seen that happening. And then two, it might really provide a great platform for them to talk about whatever programming is going on and for people to hear about that, whether it be the Elm or Access or, I mean, really any, you know, I mean, we hear from the Pickle Fest sometimes when they're doing new things or when they're doing their planning. So could we, I don't know if the board would like to hear a little bit more, but maybe we could just, there you So maybe this would be a great time to reach out and ask them if they have some availability, and it could be like in August or, you know.
Yep.
I think it'd be helpful to do it quarterly. So that way we have them come in, give just a rundown of events. I know some of them are planned a little bit later. Just a quarterly rundown of what they plan to do, what they're doing, what they're working on, and how they're providing a service to the community. I think that'd be
I'm
great.
thinking just before school starts, because I know soccer will get started.
Yep.
Yep.
So that might be a good time.
Yep.
Yep.
Late August.
So we
beginning
can
of
start
September.
there and then kind of go every, 3 to 4 months from there.
I would also invite them, if the board, so, sorry, we're in a motion, then I
Yeah,
can
we're in
talk
a
about
motion
this
for
later.
discussion, so we'll stop.
Yep.
That was just what I wanted to say with regard to that particular, so we'll stop there. Any additional discussion about the Elm?
I'm going to abstain from the vote, comes, I'm a member of the board over there.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And
Abstain.
one abstention. Nat, it just was one signature. Do you want to finish your thought while we're in that discussion?
Oh, geez, what was my thought now that I forgot it? Oh,
I was afraid that might happen.
yeah. I was going to, if the board so pleases, I would invite some of their activities that are thrown, like places that we give our tax money to, the taxpayers give their money to these organizations. I would invite them to also ask us to vote it, to post it from our town social media, as well as their personal pages, just to show full community support for our organizations in town.
Well, and especially since they are raising and appropriating through taxes, that's a great
Correct.
way. All right, we have a couple of applications for water connection. Yep, there's 3 of them. And just for, these are all on Warwick Road. Struggling with my articulation today. 115, 119, and 129. I'm assuming those are all the new properties we're seeing
Yep.
out there.
Yep.
So
There's
I
a-
did have a discussion on that. I noticed that there was a back and forth about the first one that's in there, but the other 2, there's no real approval from Rick. I was wondering if Rick could come talk to those as maybe they were just that simple and we didn't need it, or,
The first one, there's a little bit more information. It's an existing service. It actually went to 119 Warwick Road, so the developer asked initially when this went in front of the planning board if he could have that service for this lot and waiver the fee because the line hasn't been tapped. It was already tapped and the service is there, so we had some discussion with that again, and I told him, if he wanted to use that service, that's fine. If he wanted to go back to the main, we would have to discuss with the board the connection fee. The other 2, I'm just waiting for once the board approves it, we'll just need the connection fee for both those
you have
properties.
no issue with the other 2?
I have no issues
Okay.
with it. Once the payment is received, I have no issues with that.
Well, and the
He
only-
follows the original, the plan that's there.
And the
So-
only quote-unquote issue with the first one is just whether or not we're going to waive the connection fee
Correct.
because it's an existing line.
Existing line, right.
So James, would you amend your motion to what Rick suggested?
So are we, and,
Pending payment for the last 2, and the first one was pending Rick, oh,
well, we
Well,
have
the
to,
first one, we would waiver the fee long as he uses the existing service.
Yep.
Again, and follows basically when they designed that, the developer, we had draw up the plans. I said, because everything else has a 1-inch service, this is actually a 3-inch service. And there's 4 bedrooms. Obviously, the water demand today is a little bit greater than it used to be, so there's always a concern with the 3/4 inch. But I told him if he asked for this in the beginning, so I concurred with his request way back a couple years ago. So as long as he follows those requests, he just needs to change that curb stop, rod and box out, so we have a new valve feeding the property. That's only as long as he follows those. I just don't want him to go back and try to put a new line in there and tap the line again without paying the fees for the connection fee. So I just want that clarity because sometimes, there's some conversation. He wanted to upgrade that line, that's fine. But again, if he was to tap that
he
line
does
again,
it.
per our
Right,
rules and
right.
regulations, he needs
Right.
he needs that pay for the connection fee, which is for 1-inch service is $1,000.
That's in the 119 lot, right?
Correct.
That's the original house lot.
So James, would you accept a friendly amendment to be, the first one would be conditionally approved based on further work that needs to be done, and the second one conditionally approved
Pending payment.
After payment.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the second was? Yep. And just to be clear, it's actually it's 115.
Right, when all these lots got subdivided, 119. that's the way-
Became-
And it's the way,
Oh.
it's the way it lines up. It's actually the service that used to feed 119, and it's got the map
Gotcha.
and lot
Okay.
numbers there. So now it's actually, it's gonna the lot it's gonna be, the address is gonna be 115 Ward
115, all right.
Road.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to, I'm sure Carrie has that incredibly complicated motion all
Yeah.
set.
Basically, we're waiving the one connection, paying the other two per, yes, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks,
we're-
Rick.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for the sewer connection applications availability.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
so pending, what?
Pending payment, and they're waiving the.
You got it.
One out of
Perfect.
three,
You got it.
because it's existing line.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. There is one there. One there. One here. Next up, we have a couple of gravel tax levies. There's two, one in the amount of $11.16, and one in the amount of $1,300.86.
Make a motion to accept both of those.
I'll second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. All right. And last, but certainly not least, this is a notice for tax levy, yield to a tax levy, and this is collect $2,743 with interest due by July 25th.
Make a motion to accept that.
Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Carries. You're welcome. That is everything in the folder. We did a lot of finance last week. I'm sure we'll have a few things to deal with next week. So I did just mention, looking at my calendar, that the annual reviews are available. They're in the office. Carrie, are they at the selectman desk? Or are they
No, they're
just-
on my desk,
They're on your desk?
so just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. So, I'd like to do a brief work session next week, starting at 6 PM if possible. If everyone could have an opportunity to review them so that we can just move through. All
This will be
right.
a non-public.
It will be a non-public
Non-public
work
work
section, by the way. And then we'll go into our regular meeting at 6:30. So if we can, perfect.
Sounds good.
I had I just wanted to report back to the select board what is going on at the school in terms of, because we touched briefly last week on end of year, and I just kind of wanted to provide a quick update. Right now, we are tracking, and of course, this is similar to Amy's discussion last week with encumbering everything. Did I miss one? Whoops.
Yeah, gravel's 1, timber's 2. Signatures.
Yep. Sorry about that. Similar to what Amy was talking about last week, our business manager has done her due diligence and best as possible assessing where we're going to end up on the bottom line, encumbering as many of the bills as we anticipate. There could be a little bit different, but right now, we're tracking year end at about 646,000. A lot of the funds left are due to the same things that's going on with the town. We had a number of staff that we were unable to fill. And so by the time you're done with the vacancies, the benefits, and the various taxes that go along with that. That was pretty significant. We did see a reduction in Keene High tuition, basically based on enrollment. And so the board did have a conversation about that because we are seeing some fluctuation of students to charter school opportunities, to other online learning. And so I did ask at a school board level that we, at the end of year, try to get a little data to see if that's a trend that might be continuing or if that's just kind of a one-off. There was a lot of shift after COVID. You know, we've had this conversation. So those were some of the biggest places. So the tuition, which included some special education as well as staffing, were big ticket items for what we saw for leftover in the budget. Some of that staff, for instance, we were unable to staff 7 teacher or para positions. And in this upcoming budget that was recently voted on in March, we did reduce some of those staffing positions already because we can't fill them. But we still have a need for at least 6 of them. So just a update from the school on some of those numbers. Go ahead, Jen. Principal search is still ongoing. They were interviewing several candidates last week and into this week. The school board provides authorization to our superintendent for hiring purposes throughout the summer months. And we meet again July 24th as our next meeting. July 21. So if there's a significant, we'll get a heads up if they've made a hire and if there's going to be any kind of, so.
Just curious if we found anybody who's interested.
They've been interviewing, so there's interest. Yeah, that's something. And of course, there's still, there's always staffing positions. So I just wanted to report that back to the board because we'd had that conversation last week. And the school board will probably follow up at our next meeting about those funds.
Lindsay, may I ask you a question? I was curious about, you mentioned enrollment to other charter schools and how that reduced tuition. I was wondering if you could break that down a little bit more.
I asked for that breakdown.
Okay, you did?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was part of my follow-up. What does that look like? Because we frequently have the conversation about making sure that our students are getting the best opportunities they can. So are there more students taking advantage of charter schools or online learning? So I did ask for that breakdown.
I think I was maybe specifically asking, and I didn't say this, so you wouldn't know, what the burden on the taxpayer is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because the savings, quote unquote, on the tuition is kind of a double-edged sword because there is also a loss on the revenue side for those, and it's not necessarily on the Keene High because Keene would be actually losing that portion of the revenue. It's really happening when we have the siblings that are coming out of, the Winchester school, and that is being diverted over to a
Right.
charter.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to the synopsis of that.
I did ask. And the only other thing I had is an ask of the board, and actually, Teresa, I was thinking about you as the person who might be able to. I was hopeful that somebody else could take over Red Committee for a short period of time. They don't need me. They're a well-functioning board themselves, but they need a body because there's only 7 or 8 of them. And so there's an event coming up, the Bridge Dinner is coming up. I have a kiddo who decided that he'd like to break his leg in the summertime, and so I don't want to commit my time to them because I think that I'm going to be just a little busy otherwise, and that's really my only committee. They meet twice a month. And like I said, really what they're going to be in need of is the line to the select board, just making sure we're aware of what's going on, and hands to help. And I will probably be back hands to help in September for the dinner itself as a volunteer, but I don't like to let those committees go unrepresented when it's so if somebody was able to step in, I would greatly appreciate it. I know they meet, the next meeting is July 28th. Excuse me.
Is
The
it
next meeting is June 28th.
So it's the first and third?
It's the second and fourth
Oh.
Tuesday.
Teresa, if you don't want to take both of them, I'll make a deal with you.
I can't take June 28th. Wait a minute, June 28th, you said?
Yes.
Teresa, I'll make a deal with you. If you do the second Tuesday, I could do the fourth Tuesday, because I have nothing any fourth week of any month.
It's the second and fourth Tuesday of the month?
Yep.
So it would be,
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you'll
Perfect.
take the first Tuesday and I'll take the last Tuesday?
So
Awesome.
I'll take July 12th.
Yep.
yeah,
And I'll take the following one.
What time's that at?
it's a 6 PM,
And where do they meet?
right here.
Here.
Okay.
They sit at our seats and everything. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Who's doing the 20, you need somebody the 28th?
I will go on the 28th. I'll do the last
Yeah,
week of every month.
So you do the last,
And you do the second
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you. I will loop you in on an email with Jason. He's the chair, just so he knows that that's happening as well. And that is all I had. Thank you. Was there anything else from the rest of the board?
I do have a few things. Hold on, let me just update my notes real quick so I don't forget to go to recommend.
You want me to step in? I got a
Yeah,
couple things.
please.
A couple of things. Today, we met with FEMA. We had two representatives. We had a FEMA representative, and then we had a state representative here today to go over the flood from July and finalizing all of our documents. Dale, Rick, Amy, and I sat down with them, went over some last-minute things they need. So hopefully by mid next week, we'll have some numbers, and a lot of that data they're going to be entering and sending off for approval. Not that we're going to get money next week, but it's one step ahead than we have been for the last year.
Yeah.
So that's done. Reminder, on Friday, we are meeting down, DES is coming to town.
What?
I will be there.
We have a meeting with DES on Friday. I opened my mouth. Lastly, the the July 29th is the last Saturday. There is the big truck show at Monadnock Speedway. Last year. No. This is last year, remember when there was a big to-do and the traffic was backed up and they were parked on the side of the road? It was, so Chan and I, the chief, Barry, Monadnock, and the gentleman that is putting on the event spoke about 2 weeks ago. And they seem to have everything in place to make sure this does not happen again. They are going to be hiring people to do a bunch of parking. They have 2 off-sites, one being the dirt park, Winchester Speed Park, for parking. And they will shuttle people to Monadnock. So Gamarlos is a site, and then the dirt track is a second site. So it sounds like everything is in control. They're going to, on the side of the road, they're going to cone it off. No caution tape, can't park. There's going to be police officers there. It sounds like it's under control. My question to you is, at the end of the conversation, they also want to do a truck parade, which means all of these big rig trucks are going to be going like down 10 into Main Street and leaving
That's a
town.
state permit that
That's a
they have
state-
to require.
I'm not gonna approve
Yeah.
that.
Right.
They need a state permit to do that.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot of trucks.
That's crazy, no.
No, they need a permit. It's a state road. They have to get a
So
permit.
we have a call tomorrow to finalize some of the stuff, and I believe one of the state officers, state police will be on the phone as well. So they can handle that piece. Again, we did say it's a state road, it's not really up to us. And we don't have the manpower to manage that either.
No.
Right, right.
So, okay, just want to make sure.
Awesome. Anything else?
FEMA truck show, that's all I got.
Thank you. Nat?
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. What did I write down? Over here. So the broadband committee, we will be having a meeting on either the 5th or the 7th. I'm not quite sure right now, but we will be meeting with Consolidated Communications, and they will be presenting us the new grant criteria for the rest of the broadband funds. So our hopes is that we can apply for those grant funds, and that way we do not have to take out a bond, which is huge, but the broadband committee will be meeting with them once we coordinate our calendars and come up with a date. So that's just a heads up for everybody. I guess lastly, I did ask the police chief to come this evening to give us an update, and he declined. I'm not really sure why.
He did not decline.
He's not able to
He's
attend.
not able to attend.
Okay. He was not able to attend. In light of that, I would still hope that he would either give a written report of what's happening at the police station, numbers of arrests, traffic violations, things of that sort, to the select board, and/or come in person. I would also, I'm going to continue to push for a social worker. I know that we have not been looking for one. It was not our top priority because we do not currently have police officers. But I really think that the select board should make a stand and possibly step in and use some of our ARPA funds to have a one-year term and up that salary for a social worker, because people in this town are really hurting and they could really, really use that resource. I've personally gone out to about 7 people after a traumatic situation that needed support. And I mean, my schedule's booked to begin with. And I'm sure out of those 7, there's probably another 1,000 more that need support. And I really would like to implore the select board for us to possibly step in and come up with a solution for that, because it was approved by our voters.
Well, that money is gone, but I think the point is that people recognize the need, I think is more.
We got more important things that we need to get the police, we need to get the police department staff before we worry about that.
I think yes, our police department does need to be staffed, but in the interim, we will actually be using less resources from our currently understaffed police department by having a social worker. So it's a win-win.
Is there an example? Or I have 2 questions. One, is part of the information that you asked for from the chief have anything to do with, well, you asked for calls. So maybe he could, dial into that number just a little bit more and provide information on calls that were specific to mental health or other kinds of social service support, where the officer really was just there to provide resources for other support. That would be a great thing.
Yes, and/or calls that he did go to that would have required a follow-up.
Yeah, or whatever, some kind of follow-up
Yep.
of that nature. And then the second part to that is, we're not reinventing the wheel here, because having a social worker on staff in some way, shape, or form and working in conjunction with the police department is something that's being utilized. Are there some other examples that you know about or could provide of other towns and how they're structuring that, or other communities and how they're structuring that? Because if we're going to take it on from a select board side, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if somebody else is doing it well and it's being managed well, I'd love to know that, just as much as we've tried this and it really tanked,
Find out how much it's gonna cost to bring someone here.
Well, and that data we actually do kind of have, because that data was pulled together when putting together that Warren article to begin with, as to what an average salary for a part-time social worker might be. the number off the top of my head. Was that 25?
It
Thank
was
you.
25. Chief Tolet did put together a full-time versus,
Oh, full-time
Yep,
is available
and a
also.
part-time,
So
yep.
I think putting all of that together so that we can have that review, I think the board could think about it for a week, and I think that's the kind of thing that requires like a good old work session to talk through whether we're going, what that looks like for us, and being able to really put forward whether it does or doesn't. So that would be my suggestion, and
Yep.
just,
I would also like us to maybe reconsider the name social worker and consider it a community resource officer.
community resource or community
Yes.
advocate.
I think social worker scares people away a little bit, but community advocate, community resource officer, plenty of towns have community resource officers. There's a couple of people that have approached me that are interested in the job, just the part-time salary isn't enough for them.
It's difficult to attract the
Who-
best.
Right, who are
Yep.
specifically interested in the drug rehabilitation part of this community.
Doesn't the school have funding for that social worker, for a resource officer?
We do not fund for a resource officer. That is not part of our,
Is that through a grant, you get that? I thought I heard that somewhere, I'm just asking.
I mean, whether or not, and this, I'm thinking, Chan, whether or not there is that it's part of one of our grants, I'm not aware of. It has never been part of our conversation during budget building to bring in a resource officer in terms of a police officer. And all of the other positions that would be, community support within our school district are maxed out with what their duties are. So it would be extremely difficult for that staff to have, because we're talking about community members that might not have kiddos in the school district. So,
No, I'm just curious if there's any kind of grant out there.
I mean, I can certainly bring, again, the tough part is that the grant through the school is always going to be child or student driven. So if the impact is, a 42-year-old recently widowed woman with no children who's looking for resources and is struggling, that's not going to be something that the school can reach out to. So I think, in thinking about our summer schedule, I would think that sometime in the beginning of August would be a best time for a work session, just because July, we have a couple of vacations. The 6th, you're gone. The 13th, I'm gone. The 20th, I'm unavailable for starting early, and that leaves the 27th of July. So just thinking, I think that gives us time to pull together
Yep.
a lot of
I
that.
think that's, I mean, I'm okay to put together what I need to present to the board for the community. I'm happy to do that. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that there are ARPA funds for us to utilize this as a test run. And then lastly, the last thing I had was, in light of all of our energy bills increasing, the congressional delegation did put forth a ask to the governor to release more federal funding, to accept more federal funding for us to be able to lessen the burden on community members. What that turns out to is about $100 for every household to help with electric bills. But the select board can also utilize our ARPA funds to lessen the burden of community members that may have a hard time paying their utilities, given the 75% increase, 73% increase that's going to happen. So I would like us to consider that, maybe have a work session to figure out what community members would need to qualify to have their utility bills lessened. Go ahead.
There's already a formula as part of the welfare department.
No, but we could do it outside that form.
No,
Yeah.
what,
What are you're gonna piss them all away on shit. We can't,
I mean,
we got roads we're trying to fix and we couldn't,
I think human lives are more important than roads.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Where do these humans go?
Well, without the humans, you'll never be able to fix a road because they pay your taxes. So I would like it if we could have a work session to do that.
well, we're going to have a follow-up work session for additional ARPA funds anyway. Perhaps as part of that work session, we could bring our welfare officer up to talk about what the structure looks like for utility bills specifically, because I think when we talk about utilizing some of those funds, to both of your points, our remaining $250,000 in ARPA funds really does translate to about another $100 per household anyway. And I think the target is to assist in the most needed.
Correct.
Right? So we might have a larger impact with a
Or
smaller
hardship,
amount of money,
Yep.
utilizing some of the programs that we already have kind of standards for.
There's only a one-time deal of $100, right? It's not.
Right, it is.
So if your bill goes up from 115 to 230,
Yeah, it's just a one.
It's a one-time,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's any
But
little
I
bit
gotta
helps
say,
people.
in
you
July
know?
or August, when all of us see spikes, and perhaps that's part of the conversation from the town and from our own remaining ARPA funds, and that is, maybe we target the winter months where we hold some of those for the most in need. And it'll be interesting also to see if Southwest Community Service ends up with any additional funding for the winter months. Anything else from the board?
I always have more, but I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Rick? Oh, he was just waiting for it.
Just a little update. Carrie and I had a little meeting with our Tater and Howard and engineers on our biosolids study to continue the pilot for the biosolids Class A sludge. So hopefully in September, we'll have a pilot at our plant. We do have a few options, some different technologies. So unfortunately, 2 of the pilots will be off-site. We'll have to ship our sludge out. So, but we hopefully will have opportunity again, like I mentioned, to have a pilot right here at our plant using some of the newer technologies of Class A sludge. Hopefully next week, if the contractor can fit it in, we should have our leak detection taking place from Tuesday to Friday on our distribution system. Again, I'll keep you updated if that happens. He's got a tight schedule, so he tells me that if he can possibly fit it in next week, he will. So that would be an acoustic test on our complete 30 miles of our distribution system. So hopefully we find something revealing there. It's always a challenge, being the type of material we have in the ground. And as Chaney had mentioned earlier tonight, the Beauvais project on Warwick Road, the sewer extension is coming close to completion. So I would suspect within the next week or so that'll be done, the extension of that sewer main. So it's been, the weather's been cooperative. The groundwater table has dropped, and it's moved along quite rapidly. So our next, yes. I still haven't heard back from Henniker Directional Drilling. So the plan is once they're ready to go, we would start the project. I've talked it over with the contractor. The plan would be to start backwards. We would start at 5 Weatherby Drive once we do the directional drilling, and we'd work to line back. That seems like the best attack at this project, because we have all these spaghetti lines as we move, towards town. We'll be running into those lines, so it'll be a little bit more easier for us to reveal the lines, as we're working backwards. But again, I haven't heard back from them. I did reach out to them again this week. I still no one will be in the office till the 25th, so I have no new news on that. But I'll let you know as soon as possible, and once we know something about the leak detection, I will report back, and I'll let you know what we find.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Real quick, Rick just made me remember something. You're good, Rick.
Oh.
So the last time we did our river sampling for water testing of the Ashwillet River, we did have high levels of E. coli right after the wastewater treatment plant, and RLAC was associating that with the water main break that we had over by Duso Road and Ashwillet. And we just did another river testing, and that came back, and the river is beautifully clean.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There you go. There was a little furrowed brow. He was like, and?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, it was the
Oh,
sewer,
okay.
yeah. No, we're good now, Rick.
All right.
Oh, no, sorry. The sewer, sorry, the sewer. Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah,
the sewer.
please be careful about that.
Sorry about that, sorry.
Anything else from the board? Nothing, Carrie? All right, and there's no public comment today. You're here for non-public. Great. We do have a need for, excuse me, a brief non-public. I'll make a motion to enter into non-public under RSA 91A32, and we're going in
We're
for,
going to go into B.
C.
And E.
I think that's
Yep.
it.
B and E.
Evening.
There's a second from James. Roll call vote. Teresa?
Aye.
Natalie?
Aye.
Herb? James? Lindsay? Aye. We are now in non-public.